Humanity had always known that one day they would no longer be alone. What they hadn't anticipated was the sheer urgency with which that knowledge would come crashing down. The message had arrived without warning, bypassing every satellite, radio frequency, and security measure Earth had ever devised. It appeared in every language, on every screen, as though the universe itself had decided to speak directly to the species. And the message was simple: you have been called to account. Attend or perish. That was the first time humanity heard of the Galactic Council. For the first few hours, confusion reigned. Governments scrambled, scientists analyzed, and conspiracy theorists claimed vindication. Yet, as the world watched in stunned silence, the truth became evident. This was not a hoax. Whoever, or whatever, had sent the message had the power to reach every corner of the planet simultaneously. If they wanted a response, one would be given. It was Ambassador Jonathan Armitage who was chosen to represent Earth. A man with decades of experience navigating the tangled web of international politics, he had never imagined himself stepping into a role that would determine the survival of the entire species. Tall, silver-haired, with a sharp gaze that had earned him the nickname Iron Eyes, Armitage was no stranger to pressure. But this was beyond anything he had faced before. He stood in front of the global leaders for the final briefing before their journey. The room was tense. Every head of state, every military advisor, every scientific mind that could be spared was present, watching as he prepared to depart. Armitage, said Director Kazra, head of Earth's nascent Space Relations Division, her voice barely above a whisper. Do you understand what this means? This isn't diplomacy as we know it. We are walking into the unknown. You might not come back. Armitage nodded. I understand, Director, but this is our only option. We go, or we die. It was clear now. This wasn't a negotiation, nor was it a hopeful meeting to exchange knowledge between species. It was a trial, a final judgment on whether humanity deserved to continue existing in the galaxy. The true nature of the Council was still a mystery, shrouded in alien secrecy, but one fact had been made painfully clear. The human race was seen as a threat. Why? No one knew. But the idea that a race as young as theirs could somehow be dangerous to an alliance that spanned untold millennia left an ominous weight on their shoulders. The Arcos, an alien vessel sent to transport Earth's delegation, hovered in high orbit, visible to the naked eye on a clear day. Its design defied human engineering, with lines that twisted in ways that suggested it was built for beings who understood the laws of physics very differently. No sooner had Armitage and his small team boarded than they were whisked away from Earth, the stars blurring into a smear of light outside the viewport. The Arcos traveled faster than any human craft could imagine, and soon the Earth was just a distant blue dot fading into the blackness. Armitage stared out into the void, his mind racing. Beside him, Dr. Alara Tovan, a brilliant xenobiologist, adjusted her instruments nervously. Unlike Armitage, she was there not for her political acumen, but for her expertise in alien biology. Her black hair framed a face of quiet intensity, her thoughts always a few steps ahead, as if preparing for a challenge no one else could see. She had been skeptical of the Council's intentions from the start. If they wanted us dead, she muttered, they wouldn't bother with the show. There's more to this. Armitage turned to her. Then what do you think they want? Leverage, she said simply, her eyes not leaving the data she was analyzing. And we have no idea what they're willing to sacrifice to get it. Hours passed in silence. Armitage thought of Earth, of the people who were relying on him, the billions who had no idea how close they were to extinction. Every move he made from this point on would ripple through history, assuming there was any history left to write. He couldn't afford to fail. As they approached the Aurelis Nexus, the heart of the Galactic Council, the sight that greeted them was enough to take anyone's breath away. The Nexus wasn't a planet or a station. It was something altogether different, a structure so massive it could have encompassed entire worlds. Rings of luminous energy pulsed outward from its core, each one brimming with ships, structures, and beings from every corner of the galaxy. This was not a place for the weak. Upon their arrival, they were met by Counselor Azari, a member of a race known as the Katan, a tall, crystalline species whose body shimmered with an iridescent glow. Azari's voice was like shards of glass grinding together. though the translation system in Armitage's ear smoothed it into something comprehensible. "You will be brought before the council in due time," Azari said without pleasantries. "Do not speak until you are addressed. Your case will be heard, but your fate is far from certain." Armitage gave a curt nod. "We're ready." But deep down, he wasn't sure anyone could ever be truly ready for what awaited them. The council chambers loomed ahead, and with them, the judgment of countless alien civilizations. If humanity's voice was not enough to sway them, Earth would be nothing more than a distant memory, lost among the stars. As they moved closer to the heart of the council, Armitage felt the weight of responsibility grow heavier with every step. This was it. Humanity's last stand, not on a battlefield, but in a chamber of cold diplomacy, where one wrong word could mean the end of everything. The council chamber was unlike anything Armitage had ever imagined. It stretched beyond the scope of human perception, a colossal arena where the seats of power were filled by beings of shapes and sizes that defied logic. Some floated, others glided. A few were little more than masses of energy suspended in fields of light. The air itself seemed to hum with the sheer presence of the species gathered there, each representing civilizations far older, far more advanced than humanity. At the center of the chamber stood the Triumvirate, three beings who held ultimate authority over the proceedings. Varak, a massive, insectoid creature from the planet Keljoth, clicked its mandibles impatiently as it scanned the newcomers. Beside it, Ealin, a representative of the energy-based Latari collective, floated in silent observation, its glowing form pulsing rhythmically. The third was Osiris-9, an artificial intelligence encased in an elegant, humanoid exoskeleton, built by a species that had long since vanished, leaving their machines to inherit their legacy. The sight of the triumvirate alone would have been enough to unsettle even the most seasoned diplomat, but it was the hostility radiating from some of the other council members that hit Armitage the hardest. As he took his place in the center of the chamber, alongside Dr. Tovan and the few human delegates allowed to witness the proceedings, he felt the weight of 1,000 eyes, some literal, some not, bearing down on them. Humans. The voice echoed through the chamber, booming and deep. It belonged to Heron, the representative of the Narcid, a race of enormous armored quadrupeds whose civilization was built on millennia of conquest. The disdain in its voice was palpable. "You arrive here as a young species, barely out of your star system, yet your presence has already disrupted the balance we have maintained for eons. Why should we allow you to continue?" Armitage knew this was coming. The Narcid were known for their bluntness, and their disdain for weaker species was well documented. But hearing it in person, seeing the towering figure of Heron leaning forward as if ready to strike, was something else entirely. Before he could respond, a sharp voice cut in. Balance. It was Vekthar, the emissary of the Kaldrex Union, a race of telepathic beings whose civilization thrived on exploration and knowledge. Their slender, elongated forms shimmered with light as they communicated directly into the minds of the council. "This balance you speak of, Heron, is nothing more than an illusion you cling to. The humans are not the problem. Your fear is. You fear what they could become, just as you feared the Kaldrex before we joined the council." Tension crackled in the air, the words slicing through the chamber like a knife. The divide among the council members was immediately apparent. On one side, species like the Narcid, who saw humanity as a threat, an unpredictable, aggressive race that could disrupt the fragile status quo. On the other, more progressive species like the Kaldrex, who saw potential in humanity's resilience and adaptability. Armitage took a breath. He had to play this carefully. One misstep here, and they would be dismissed, or worse, condemned. "Honorable members of the council," Armitage began, his voice steady but firm, "I understand that our sudden emergence into the wider galactic stage is unsettling. Humanity has made mistakes, there is no denying that. But we are here to learn, to grow, to cooperate. We are not a threat to the peace of this galaxy." "Not a threat?" Heron's deep voice rumbled through the chamber again. "Your species has waged war on itself for centuries. You have weapons capable of annihilating entire cities. Why should we believe that you would not turn those weapons on the rest of us?" Armitage locked eyes, or the closest equivalent, with Heron. The Narsid's hulking form loomed in the distance, but Armitage refused to back down. Yes, we have fought. Yes, we have weapons. But look at our history more closely. Every time we have come to the brink of destruction, we have pulled back. We have survived, and not through conquest, but through cooperation, rebuilding, and finding new ways forward. That is what defines us. A murmur rippled through the council. Some seemed intrigued, others remained skeptical. It was then that Jal, the representative of the Morosi Syndicate, a race known for their cunning diplomacy and long-standing control over trade routes, raised a hand like appendage. Let's cut to the heart of the matter, shall we? This is not about whether humanity can be peaceful. This is about whether we should trust a species so young with access to the broader galactic network. The risks are too great. The stakes are too high. Dr. Tovan, who had remained silent thus far, suddenly spoke up. What you fear is not humanity's youth or its weapons. What you fear is our unpredictability. She glanced at Armitage, who nodded slightly, signaling her to continue. You've seen other species rise and fall. You've watched as civilizations stagnated under the weight of their own perfection. But humanity, we are different. We thrive in chaos. We adapt. What you fear is not what we are, but what we could become. There was a pause. The chamber seemed to hold its breath. Osiris-9, the AI triumvir, finally spoke, its mechanical voice smooth and controlled. Dr. Tovan raises a valid point. Humanity's adaptability is unique, but that very trait could be dangerous. What assurance can you give this council that your species will not spiral into the kind of chaos that threatens the stability of all? Armitage took a deep breath. This was it. The turning point. You ask for assurances, he said slowly, but I ask you this. What species can guarantee its future with absolute certainty? None of us here can predict the challenges that lie ahead, neither humanity nor any of the older, more established civilizations. But what we can guarantee is this. Humanity will fight for its place in this galaxy, not through conquest, but through perseverance, through collaboration. We have much to offer, our creativity, our resourcefulness, our ability to adapt to the unknown. We seek a future with the Council, not against it. He scanned the faces, or the equivalents, of the beings around him, letting the weight of his words settle in. You fear what we might become. I say you should, because what we will become, if given the chance, will be a force for progress that even the oldest among you could never have anticipated. The chamber fell into a tense silence. Heron shifted, the heavy sound of its armor clanking against the floor. Vekthar's light dimmed momentarily, as if deep in thought. The triumvirate exchanged glances, though what passed between them was known only to their vast ancient minds. After what felt like an eternity, Elen's ethereal voice filled the chamber. The council will deliberate. You may wait outside. Armitage nodded, turning slowly to leave the chamber. As the doors closed behind them, he felt a knot of tension in his chest that he hadn't realized was there. We did what we could, Dr. Tovan said quietly beside him. Armitage didn't respond. The truth was, he wasn't sure if it had been enough. The fate of humanity now lay in the hands of beings who had seen countless species rise and fall. Whether they saw humanity as a future ally or a ticking time bomb, only time would tell. But one thing was clear. The council was far from united. The waiting was agonizing. Armitage stood in the sterile antechamber, staring at the walls made of some iridescent material that shifted with the light. Dr. Tovan paced in the small space, her anxiety clearly growing. The rest of the delegation, Colonel Isaac Boren, a military attaché sent to offer strategic counsel, and Leah Renna, a cultural analyst with a sharp mind for alien diplomacy, sat quietly, each lost in their thoughts. They're taking too long, Boren muttered. His voice was gruff, edged with frustration. A man built for decisive action, Boren wasn't one to appreciate the diplomatic dance. Whatever they're deciding, it shouldn't take this long. They have to consider the consequences carefully, Tovan responded, though her words lacked conviction. She knew as well as anyone that the council's decision would be as much about politics as it was about humanity's fate. The door opened, breaking the tension. Councillor Azari re-entered, their crystalline body shimmering under the chamber's pale light. Their expression, if one could interpret the angular, shifting features of the Kathan, was unreadable. The council requires additional information, Azari said, their voice sharp and cutting. You will be escorted to the Verasium, where further details of the deliberation will be made clear." "The Verasium?" Rena looked puzzled. "That's not part of the council chambers. What is it?" Azari's glowing eyes flared, as if the question was an affront. "The Verasium is where the truth is revealed. It is not a place of comfort for those who seek easy answers." Before anyone could ask further questions, the group was hurried through a series of winding corridors, escorted by silent, hovering drones. Armitage tried to quell the unease building in his chest, but something about Azari's tone unsettled him. After what felt like hours of navigating the labyrinthine halls of the council's station, they arrived at a vast, circular room, the Verasium. The chamber was lined with rows of translucent panels, each displaying shifting patterns of data in languages no human could understand. In the center stood a platform, surrounded by orbs of pulsating light, recorders of the council's most sensitive deliberations. Armitage recognized this for what it was, a place where information was gathered, analyzed, and more importantly, where decisions of enormous consequence were justified. A figure awaited them there, standing in the shadows. "Envoy Zarash," Azari said, introducing the figure without a hint of warmth. Zarash stepped forward. The envoy was a member of the Tskari Dominion, a species known for their cold, calculating nature. Their long, segmented body shimmered with dark, metallic scales, and their eyes, small and black, betrayed no emotion. The Tskari were one of the most influential factions within the council, silent manipulators who operated behind the scenes, pulling strings no one else could see. "I see the humans have arrived," Zarash said, their voice a low hiss, each word dripping with barely contained disdain. "It is time you understood why you have been summoned here." Armitage kept his expression neutral, though the tension in his muscles betrayed his unease. The whole council knew why humanity was summoned, didn't they? To determine if the species was a threat to galactic order, if they were worth preserving. But the way Zarash spoke suggested something deeper, something hidden. "What are you talking about?" Armitage asked, his voice steady. "We were summoned to answer for our place in the galaxy." Zarash's mouth twisted into something resembling a smile, though on their alien face it was more a baring of teeth. "That's the surface of it, yes, but you misunderstand the true reason for your summons. The Council has been watching your species for far longer than you think. Humanity did not merely stumble into our awareness. You were being observed." Tovin stopped pacing. "Observed? How long have we been under surveillance?" Zarash's black eyes gleamed. "Since before you discovered fire." The room fell silent, the weight of that revelation sinking in. Armitage clenched his fists. They had been watching for that long, waiting, calculating, determining humanity's path before humans had even known what stars were. "You were a test," Zarash continued, his voice sharp and methodical, "a long-running experiment to see what your species would become. Some on the council hoped you would prove useful. Others anticipated you would destroy yourselves before it became a problem." Boren growled. "A problem? You mean before we became a threat?" Zarash turned their cold gaze on Boren. "Yes, a threat. And now, as you stand on the edge of true interstellar expansion, the debate has resurfaced. Should humanity be permitted to join the wider galaxy, or should you be extinguished before you pose a danger to the balance?" Armitage felt a surge of anger rise, but he kept his voice calm. "We were never told, never given the choice. How can you judge us on actions we didn't even know were being watched?" Zarash's gaze didn't waver. "That is the nature of observation. But there is more to this decision than mere judgment. You see, your fate is not in the hands of the Council alone. There are factions within the Council, some who seek to manipulate your arrival for their own ends. Some who wish to see you destroyed, not because you are dangerous, but because it serves their purposes." Armitage's mind raced. This was worse than he had imagined. Humanity wasn't simply being judged. They were caught in the middle of a galactic power struggle, and they hadn't even known it. "Who are these factions?" Tovin asked, her voice quiet but firm. "Why do they care about us so much?" Zarash's expression turned grave. "There are those who fear the potential of your species, your adaptability, your relentless drive. If you were to align with certain powers in this galaxy, it could shift the balance entirely. The Council is meant to maintain peace, but peace is fragile. Many fear that humanity would bring chaos. Rena, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke, her voice laced with disbelief. So we're being used as a pawn in some galactic chess game? Is that it? Zarash's gaze hardened. In some ways, yes. You are both a threat and an opportunity, and it is not just your survival at stake, but the survival of the entire council. The words hung in the air like a dark cloud. Armitage felt his heart race. So what now? You've brought us here, revealed this, but what does it mean for Earth, for humanity? Zarash hesitated for the first time, their cold demeanor faltering slightly. That depends on the choice you make. The factions are preparing to offer you a deal. Subjugation in exchange for survival. Humanity will become a protectorate of one of the Council's major powers. You will be allowed to live, but not as equals, as subjects. Boren slammed his fist into the wall. You want us to submit? Like hell, we'd rather fight. Fight? Zarash's voice turned mocking. You have no idea what you're up against. The Council could annihilate your planet in the blink of an eye. Do you think Earth's weapons would matter in the face of forces that bend reality itself? Armitage raised a hand to calm Boren, but his own frustration boiled beneath the surface. So those are our choices? Submission or annihilation? Zarash's dark smile returned. That is one choice. The other is to play the game. Use the Council's divisions to your advantage. Leverage your position. But know this, every decision will have consequences, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. The implications of Zarash's words were staggering. This wasn't just about diplomacy or survival. This was about navigating a web of alliances, betrayals, and power plays that stretched across the galaxy. Tovan stepped forward, her voice low and deliberate. We need to know who our allies are, Zarash. If humanity is to survive, we need more than just threats. We need options. Zarash's eyes glittered. Options. You'll have them soon enough. The factions will make their offers. But be careful. Once you align with one side, you will make an enemy of the other. As Zarash turned to leave, Armitage's voice rang out, cold and sharp. Why tell us this? Why help us at all? Zarash paused, then looked back, the barest hint of a smile on their alien face. Because, Ambassador, in this game, nothing is ever as it seems, and sometimes chaos is exactly what we need. With that, Zarash disappeared into the shadows, leaving the human delegation standing in the heart of the Verasium, the weight of their choices bearing down on them like never before. They had entered the Council thinking they were there to plead for humanity's survival. Now, they knew the truth. This wasn't just about Earth. It was about power, control, and the future of the entire galaxy, and they were at the center of it all. Back in the antechamber, the weight of Zarash's revelation hung heavy in the air. Armitage paced the narrow space, his mind racing through the layers of deception and manipulation that surrounded them. Humanity's fate wasn't a simple matter of diplomacy anymore. It was a deadly game, and they had just been thrust onto the board as a pivotal piece. What the hell do we do now? Boren's voice was low but full of frustration. The military man's instinct was to push back, but the reality of their situation was clear. Force was not an option. Rena sighed, shaking her head. We don't have a choice, do we? Either we submit to one of these factions or we're wiped out. We always have a choice, Armitage said, though he knew how fragile that statement was. The question was whether any choice they made could actually ensure humanity's survival, or whether they were already doomed, no matter what path they took. Dr. Tovan's voice broke through the tension. We need to know who these factions are, what they're offering. If we can't avoid being used, we can at least choose who uses us. Rena nodded. Agreed, but we're playing with fire here. Whoever we side with will see us as an asset, not an equal. That much is obvious. A knock at the door interrupted the conversation, and before they could respond, it slid open to reveal a new figure. Kelra, a representative of the Talarian Enclave, strode in with a fluid grace that belied the Enclave's reputation for ruthless efficiency. The Talarian were a race of amphibious beings, their pale blue-gray skin glistening under the chamber's artificial light. Kelra's sharp eyes fixed on Armitage. Ambassador, Kelra said, their voice a smooth purr, the Talarian Enclave has heard of your situation. We believe we can offer you a solution. Armitage's jaw tightened. A solution? A solution? Or an ultimatum? Kelra's lips curved into a faint smile, though it didn't reach their eyes. A partnership of sort. The Enclave is well placed within the Council. Our military might is unmatched, and we have a keen understanding of strategic alliances. We offer you protection, and in return, humanity will serve as a vassal state under Talarian guidance. You will retain some autonomy, of course, but decisions regarding your planet's military and economic matters will be subject to Enclave oversight. The words vassal state echoed in Armitage's mind. It was submission dressed as partnership, a leash hidden behind the guise of protection. Boren bristled. You mean conquered? Kelra raised an eyebrow. No, I mean preserved. The Council won't risk destroying a species under our protection. You'll survive. That's more than many here are willing to offer. Armitage stared hard at Kelra. And what happens if we refuse? Refuse, and the Council will proceed with extermination, or perhaps worse, leave you to be divided among those who wish to exploit you. Kelra's voice dropped to a cold whisper. This is your only real option, Ambassador. Before Armitage could respond, the door opened again. This time, Councillor Vectrith, the representative of the Aurexian Coalition, entered. The Aurexians were a race of ethereal beings, their forms barely solid, constantly shifting between energy and matter. Their reputation for being strategists and intellectuals made them both respected and feared. Ambassador Armitage, Vectrith said, their voice echoing as if carried on a breeze, I would caution you against accepting the Talarians' offer so hastily. The Enclave is a hammer, and all they see are nails. The Aurexian Coalition offers a different path, a path of knowledge, a path of evolution. Kelra's gaze darkened, but they said nothing. Armitage frowned. What do you mean by evolution? Vectrith moved closer, their form flickering. Humanity is on the verge of a great transformation. The Aurexian Coalition has studied your species for millennia. We know that you are adaptable, resourceful, but you have not yet reached your full potential. Align with us, and we will guide you through your next phase of evolution. You will not merely survive, you will thrive as a higher species. Boren scoffed. You mean you'll turn us into some kind of experiment? Vectrith's smile was almost imperceptible. In a way, all life is an experiment, but the results we offer will elevate humanity beyond what you can imagine. And what's the cost? Tovan asked sharply. No one offers something like that without a price. Vectrith's form shimmered. In exchange for our guidance, humanity will share its future advancements with the Coalition. Your planet's resources, your technology, what little of it is relevant, will serve our collective growth. But make no mistake, we will protect you from the Council's more destructive tendencies. Armitage's mind raced. Two offers, each more insidious than the last. The Talarians offered survival, but at the cost of subjugation. The Aurexians offered advancement, but at the cost of humanity's autonomy, perhaps even their identity. And yet, they weren't done. The door opened one final time. Councillor Kelthus, the representative of the Zoltar Dominion, strode in, their elongated insectoid form moving with precision. The Zoltar were known for their relentless expansion, consuming entire systems to fuel their empire's ever-growing appetite for power. They had been quiet throughout the Council's deliberations, but now they had come to make their play. Ambassador, Kelthus said, their voice a harsh buzz, the Dominion has observed these pathetic offers. Neither the Talarian Enclave nor the Aurexian Coalition can offer you true power. They offer you scraps. We offer you dominion over your own kind. Join the Zoltar, and humanity will become an integral part of our empire, not as subjects, but as rulers of your sector. Your people will be uplifted, given the technology and the means to control not just Earth, but any world you desire. The sheer audacity of the offer took Armitage by surprise. Kelthus wasn't offering survival or advancement. The Zoltar were offering dominion, but there was no doubt the price would be humanity's soul. They would be conquerors, yes, but at the cost of everything they had fought to preserve. Tovan spoke first, her voice thick with disgust. So you want us to become what you are? To subjugate others? Kelthus's mandibles clicked in amusement. Subjugate? No, lead. There is no higher calling than to bring order to the chaos of the galaxy. Humanity has the potential to be great, but not under the yoke of the Council. Join us, and you will become the leaders of your own destiny. Or refuse, and watch as others pick the bones of your dying world. Armitage felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. 3 offers, each with consequences more dire than the next. The Talarian Enclave, the Orexian Coalition, the Soltar Dominion, all vying for humanity, not because of what Earth was, but because of what it could be. A tool, a weapon, a pawn in their galactic chess game. "You want to see us destroy ourselves," Armitage said, his voice low, almost to himself. "You're not offering us survival, you're offering us chains." Kelra smiled faintly. "Chains are better than oblivion." Kelthus bristled, their forms stiffening. "Chains? We offer you the keys to the galaxy." Vectrith's voice flowed softly into the air. "Not chains. We offer you enlightenment." Armitage stared at them, his mind spinning. The fate of humanity was in his hands, and no matter which choice he made, the consequences would ripple through Earth for generations. But there had to be another way. There had to be. Boren stepped forward, his voice like steel. "Ambassador, we can't take any of these deals. We fight, no matter the odds." Armitage clenched his fists. "If we fight, we lose. The Council would destroy us before we ever had a chance." Tovan, ever the strategist, spoke softly. "Maybe, but what if we turn them against each other?" Rena raised an eyebrow. "You mean pit the factions against one another? How?" Armitage's mind raced. The factions were divided, each vying for control, each with their own agenda. But what if humanity could use that division to their advantage? What if they could manipulate the manipulators? He looked at the 3 alien representatives, each of them waiting for his decision. "We accept nothing," Armitage said, his voice firm. "We won't be pawns in your game. We'll find our own way." Kellera's smile vanished. "Then you choose death." Vectrith flickered with displeasure. "You're making a mistake, Ambassador." Kelthus's mandibles clicked in fury. "You would dare defy the Dominion? You will regret this." Armitage stood tall, facing them with iron resolve. "No, you will regret underestimating us." With that, he turned to his team. "We leave. Now." The aliens watched in silence as the human delegation walked out of the chamber, the finality of Armitage's words still hanging in the air. The Council was divided, and now they knew that humanity would not bow. The question that remained was whether Earth could survive the storm that was about to descend. The corridors of the Council station were eerily quiet as Armitage and his team made their way back to the Arcos, the tension between them palpable. Each step felt like a march toward an inevitable confrontation, though none of them were sure what form it would take. "We just turned down 3 of the most powerful factions in the galaxy," Rena muttered under her breath, her pace quickening. "Do you think they'll let us just leave?" "They'll try to stop us," Boren said, his hand instinctively moving to the sidearm holstered at his waist. "But we're not leaving without a plan." Tovan, ever the pragmatist, glanced at Armitage. "And what is the plan, Ambassador? We've thrown the gauntlet down, but the Council won't just stand by and let us walk away. We need leverage, or they'll crush us." Armitage slowed his pace, thoughts racing. Leverage. They needed something, anything, that could turn the tide in their favor. The factions had played their cards, each one eager to exploit humanity for their own purposes. But there had to be more at stake than what they had been shown. The Council had underestimated them, seeing humanity as a pawn in a larger game, a species to be controlled or eradicated. But they weren't pawns. Not anymore. Armitage's mind returned to something Zarash had said, almost in passing. In this game, nothing is ever as it seems. The Tskari envoy had been cryptic, but there was an implication beneath his words, that humanity wasn't just a random variable in this equation. They were a threat, but not in the way the Council had claimed. Then it hit him. The factions didn't just fear humanity's potential, they feared what humanity already knew. Armitage stopped, turning to face his team. "Zarash told us we were being watched for millennia, but think about it. Why the secrecy? Why monitor us so closely from before we even discovered fire? It's because they know something we don't." Tovan's eyes narrowed. "You think they're hiding something?" "I think we've been part of their plans far longer than we realized," Armitage said. "We were supposed to reach this point. The Council needs us, but they don't want us to know why." Rena frowned. "And how do we use that? We're playing blind here." "Not entirely," Armitage replied, his voice firm. "We have something they don't. Something no species in the Council has, our unpredictability. They've been calculating our every move, waiting for us to submit to their game. But if we disrupt the board, We force them to react. Boren's eyes gleamed with understanding. You mean we shake the damn hive and see what crawls out? Tovin hesitated. That's a hell of a gamble, Armitage. If we push too hard, they might wipe us out on the spot. Armitage nodded. I know, but it's a gamble we have to take. If we can make the factions turn on each other, even for a moment, we create enough chaos to slip out of their grasp. And then we negotiate on our terms. How? Rena asked, her voice tinged with urgency. What do we have that could make them fight among themselves? Armitage's eyes hardened. We give them a reason to fear us more than they fear each other. They reached the docking bay where the Arcos waited, but something was wrong. The bay was empty, no security, no officials. Nothing. It was too quiet, too deliberate. Boren moved ahead, scanning the area with trained precision. It's a trap. They're watching us, waiting. They want to see what we'll do next, Tovan said grimly. Armitage stepped forward, his mind racing. He knew they were out of time, but they weren't out of options. Turning to his team, he spoke with quiet intensity. We need to make a statement, something the Council can't ignore. Tovan, you said it yourself. They fear our unpredictability. That's our weapon. Tovan's face tightened with concern. And how exactly do we make that happen? We're standing on their turf. They control the variables. Not all of them, Armitage said, his voice low but commanding. We control our own. And if we act irrationally, we become dangerous. That's what they fear most, that we'll do something they can't predict. Rena's eyes widened. You want them to think we're about to go rogue. Armitage nodded, a grim smile forming on his lips. Exactly. We threaten to break their precious balance. Tovan was already connecting the dots. You want to make them think we'll use our weapons? You're talking about deterrence. No, Armitage said, shaking his head. They know our weapons are primitive compared to theirs, but they don't understand us. They don't understand how far we'll go to survive. We need to show them that we're willing to go beyond anything they've calculated. Boren grinned, an edge of dark humor in his voice. You want to scare the hell out of them. We need to make them believe that if they push us, we'll push back in ways they can't anticipate. That we'll be the chaos they can't control, Armitage said. We force them into uncertainty, make them question whether wiping us out will trigger something worse. Rena stepped forward, realization dawning. The factions, if they believe one group is pushing humanity too hard, they'll turn on each other to keep control. Armitage's eyes locked onto hers. That's the plan. We show them that humanity won't be contained, and we make them afraid of who'll be the first to lose control. Tovin still looked skeptical, but she nodded. If we pull this off, they'll be too busy managing the fallout to destroy us. And what if they call our bluff? Boren asked, his voice full of steel. Armitage's gaze was steady. Then we fight, with everything we have. Boren let out a sharp breath, a hint of a grin on his lips. Well, Ambassador, if we're going down, I'd rather go down swinging. The team moved into the Arcos, sealing the doors behind them. The alien craft powered up, its engines humming with barely contained energy. Armitage took the central seat, his mind focused on the impossible task ahead. They were about to challenge not just the Council, but the entire galactic order. With a single command, Armitage activated the ship's communication system, sending a message across the Council network. A broadcast to every faction, every representative, every power broker watching from the shadows. His voice was calm, but each word was laced with purpose. To the Galactic Council and all its factions, you've underestimated humanity for the last time. We will not bow to your threats, and we will not be used as pawns in your game. You want to control us, but you don't understand us. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. If you force our hand, we will become the chaos you fear. We will not be ruled, we will not be divided, and we will survive. Any attempt to destroy us will have consequences beyond your control. If you think we're just another species to be crushed underfoot, think again. Humanity is ready to fight, and we have nothing left to lose. Armitage cut the transmission and leaned back in his seat. The message was clear. They had laid their cards on the table, but this time, the Council didn't know what game they were playing. Outside the Arcos, the station flickered with activity. Ships began to move, communications sparked between the factions, and the tension in the air thickened like a storm about to break. Then the unexpected happened. The council fractured. The Talarians scrambled to secure their military advantage. The Aurexians moved to protect their intellectual interests, and the Zoltar bristled at the challenge to their dominance. The factions had been unified by fear of humanity's growth, but now they were splintering, each afraid of what the others might do with a desperate, unpredictable species at the center of it all. Armitage watched the chaos unfold from the Arcos' control center, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his lips. They blinked, Bourne said quietly, eyes scanning the council's frantic response. Tovan exhaled slowly, relief mingling with disbelief. They actually blinked. Rena shook her head in awe. We did it. But Armitage's expression remained cold, calculating. We bought ourselves time. Nothing more. This isn't over. As the council ship scrambled in disarray, the Arcos surged forward, cutting through the stars toward freedom. They had played the only card they had, and it had worked, for now. But Armitage knew one thing with absolute certainty. Humanity had been given a brief, fragile reprieve. They had shown the galaxy what they were capable of, what they were willing to become, and the galaxy would never forget it. They had faced diplomacy, they had faced death, and in the end, humanity had chosen its own path. The game wasn't over, not by a long shot.